Hello Internet and welcome to An Even Weirder Move. Today we're going to be talking about a game called Garden Dice by Meridae Games, designed by Doug Bass. Now, this game is I think one of the most underhyped and underrated games in my collection. It's got a really awesome chaining mechanic that has a feel of maybe match 3 type of puzzle games. It's got a real nice casual gaming feel to it, which some may see as an insult, but I mean that as a definite compliment here. This game won the Games Magazine Game of the Year award not too long ago and really didn't get a whole lot of hype off of that despite that award, although I don't know how well regarded that award really is. But it definitely is a game that I've broken out time and time again that I think is one of the better games of this genre, sort of a dice rolling action selection game. So let me show you a little bit about how the game works, and then I'll tell you why I think it deserves a spot in my collection, and maybe convince you it deserves a spot in yours, which shouldn't be too hard to do considering I think there's a reprint coming up. Okay, so here we have the setup for a game of Garden Dice. Each player is going to start the game with a set of special tiles. We're going to have a Sun token, which is going to let them either re-roll all of the dice on their turn, or straight up change the value of one dice to whatever they want. They're going to have a Critter token, which has a bird on the first side and a rabbit on the second side, and this is going to let them attack what other people are building. And they're going to have a Utility token, which has a sundial on one side, which is going to let them change the value of the dice on their turn by up to 2 pips, or the Scarecrow, which protects their seeds from birds and is also going to give them some bonus scoring for anything that's planted around it. We're also going to start with a bunch of discs in your collar, and these are limited. These are going to limit the number of things that you can build, basically place out on the board, and also going to limit the number of times you can use your critter to attack other players. On your turn, you're going to roll the 4 dice, and you must use all of them, if you can, to perform actions in the game. The actions you can perform are pretty simple. The first one is to buy a seed. So I can spend this 6 to buy a seed of the value of 6 or less. Luckily, all of the seeds have value of 5 or less. We have a squash seed, which turns into a lovely squash. We have a carrot seed, which turns into a majestic carrot. We have a tomato seed, which turns into a... I don't like tomatoes, so I'm not going to even go with that one. We have a what's this? Artichoke? Pinecone seed here, and we have a eggplant. And the eggplant is the best, obviously, and it's worth 5 points here. So with a 6, I can buy any one seed of my choosing. The next thing I can do on my turn is I can spend 2 dice to plant any seed that I've bought at the proper coordinates on the board. So with a 1 and a 2, I could put my seed there or there. Once I bought the seed, it'll have a disc on it showing that it's mine, and I would just place it on the board. I could also use those 2 dice to place one of my special tiles on the board, either this critter on the bird side, it always starts with that side up, or my sundial starting the sundial side up. On my turn, I could use my sun token. If I did so, I would discard it back to the box, re-roll as many of the dice as I wanted, or change one of the values. But if I don't use this, it's going to be worth 5 points at the end of the game. The third action that I can do, and the fourth action, are the ways that I'm going to mainly be scoring points, are watering and harvesting. And that's where the chaining mechanic I mentioned earlier comes into play. So let's say that I planted this here. And on the next turn, I wanted to water it and turn it into a full-grown pine cone. But before that happened, my opponents had come in and they'd planted a bunch of stuff next to me, like so. If I use a dice to water this seed, the dice has to be equal or higher value, as you'd expect. I not only water this seed and have it turn into this, but anything that's of lesser value next to it. So that means that this 3 would also get watered, regardless of whose it was. And that continues to chain as far as it can. So this 2 would also get watered, and this 1 would also get watered. So I've just saved my opponents an awful lot of work by watering all of those things for them. You'll notice this thing is the same value, so it does not get to benefit from this chaining mechanic. The same thing happens if I harvest. So if I spend a dice to harvest this, I get to harvest this and put it in my score pile, but all my opponents are going to get to harvest these as well. But there's a little bit more of a kickback for me in that case, because I'm actually going to go ahead and score 1 point on the scoring track for every vegetable of an opponent's that's harvested on my turn. So they might want to think twice before letting me scoop up a bunch of points that way. If a vegetable is harvested down here in the lower corner, it's worth double its listed value. If it's harvested next to a scarecrow, it's worth 3 points more than its listed value, but a vegetable can't benefit from both of those bonuses at once. Finally, on my turn, I can move my critter around the board. So the critter has two different sides. It's got this bird, which likes to eat the opponent's seeds, and it's got the rabbit, which likes to eat the opponent's vegetables. I can use one of my dice to move him as many spaces up to the number shown on the dice in a straight line as possible, ending on the first opponent's seed or vegetable that I'll encounter. I then eat that seed or vegetable, and I have a choice. I can either load up my bird or rabbit's tummy with another one of my discs and discard that out of the game, or I can take the seed or vegetable that I have just eaten, pay one more of my dice that I hadn't used on that turn so far, that's the appropriate value, and put it in front of me as though I had just bought it, putting a disc on it. Either way, using my critter to do a bunch of stuff during the game is going to quickly chew through my supply of player discs, player markers over here, and it's going to start limiting what I'm able to do on my turn. So what if I get into a situation where this bird has run around the board rampantly, just eating his fill, and he's got a whole bunch of my discs on him, and I'm not able to put out very many seeds on the board and actually score points because I've been being too much of a jerk to everybody else? Well, I've got to get rid of this animal. And anybody can take that action, but it's expensive to do and difficult. You must first have the proper coordinates. So I've got a 4 and a 5. I'm going to move that guy there so that he's actually in the right space. I must first have the proper coordinates to kill him. And then I have to have a 6 also. So 3 of my dice on that turn, and very specific values, are going to be used up in order to take him off of the board and take all of these discs back into my supply. So that's a nice little counterbalance to the aggressiveness of those things. Somebody that keeps using them extremely aggressively might find themselves in a tight situation and having to remove their own critter. Of course, I could remove their critter if it was, being too much of a bother to me, but I think I'd rather let them squander a bunch of their tokens on it first. Anyway, the game is going to end when all of these seed tokens are taken, and there's going to be a different number of each kind per player count. When all of the seed tokens are taken, in addition to the points you've scored throughout the game, you're going to score some additional bonuses. So, for each set of each type of vegetable that we have collected, you're going to get 15 points for that. And then, for each collection of multiples of the same kind of vegetable, you're going to get a different amount of points. 2 is not worth anything. 3 is worth 10. 4 is worth 15. 5 is worth 20 points. So you get a bunch of set bonuses at the end. At the end of the game, whoever's got the most points is going to be the winner. So that's Garden Dice by Doug Bass. By that guy. And it's a really good game. There are so many things that I like about this game that I think that I'll just start rambling about them, and hopefully some of my enthusiasm about it will go through the internet to where you are and make you buy it. The first thing that I really enjoy about this game is that it has the potential for a lot of different strategies, one of which is to just be a jerk and siphon off of your opponent's effort. I mentioned in the little ramble I did about Magnum Sol earlier in my Tales from the Bottom Shelf video that I enjoy games where you can set yourself up as sort of the middleman and profit from your opponent's profit. Basically, you can score points, but if you do that, I'm going to score points too, and that's just how this is going to work. And you can do that in this game, and that's one of the strategies. You can buy a bunch of small value vegetables and litter them about the board such that anytime any of your opponents water stuff, your stuff gets watered, and anytime one of your opponents harvests stuff, your stuff gets harvested. That's one strategy, but it's not the only strategy. You can also just consistently plant and harvest high-value things. You can take advantage of the bonus spaces on the board or the bonuses for being next to a scarecrow. You can rampage around the board with your animals and devour your opponent's stuff, making it so that they can't benefit from your watering or harvesting. There's just a lot of different things you can do, and the actual base rules for this game are really, really simple. They're so simple that I think some of the people that I've played Garden Dice with would just explode if I tried to make them play Castles of Burgundy, which isn't a super complicated game, but there's a bunch of tile interactions. You have to know what these things do, and everything in this is really simple. It's basically a number and a suit. It's easy to get people to play it. It's very accessible. There are a couple things I would feel maybe remiss if I didn't bring up about this game. The first is that people online have this feeling that the animals are mean, and they are mean, but I don't think they're so mean that I would take them out, as some people have suggested. As I mentioned in the overview, using the animals is going to eat up your... Get it? Eat up, because he eats the... is going to use up a lot of your player markers pretty quickly, and your player markers are how you plant seeds and vegetables on the board, and that's how you get points. So if you are overzealous and having your bird run around like a little tyrant devouring all of everyone else's work, it might feel really good, but you're not actually getting very far. So a player that knows what they're doing probably won't do that. The problem is if a player is new to the game, they might do it because it feels powerful. It feels really good to march around the board and destroy what other people have set up. But it has the potential to not really gain you very much. Essentially all you're doing is trading your turn, moving the animal, for their turn putting down the seed, and you actually lose one of your control markers. So unless you can really make the most of that situation, it's not the best thing to do, but it still feels like an attractive option, especially to newer players. So I think just a little heads up about how you won't score points by doing that. It's probably enough to resolve the issue of somebody being kind of a monster with their rabbits or birds. The second thing is... Okay, so every turn in this game you're going to roll 4 dice, and you're going to have to use all of them to take actions. 2 of them indicates a coordinate on the board, so any pair of your dice is going to indicate potentially a different spot on the board. Your other dice can be used to buy seeds that are lower than that value, be used to water anything lower than that value, harvest anything lower than that value, but that might cause different chain reactions around the board. Additionally, you've got that sun token, and that's worth 5 points if you don't use it, but if you do use it, you'll get to reroll all of your dice, or just set one of them to a specific value, so that might be a good thing to do. Or you can use your sundial, if you have that placed, to change the value of 1 dice by 2, or of 2 dice by 1, and you can do all that stuff, and it's a lot of stuff. So what I'm trying to say is, if you have one of those players in your group who likes to, we'll call it, extensively consider their options, you should probably invest in, and they should be laying around your house, just grab some extra sets of dice and throw them in here, and have all the players roll their dice at the end of their turn, and keep them hidden until their next turn where they start actually using those. And that'll allow people to do a little bit of thought before their turn actually comes around, and hopefully get rid of some of that, because the game says it's supposed to last 60 minutes, and most of the time it lasts about 60 minutes, but I've had it last longer than 60 minutes by a lot. So not since I've added those extra sets of dice, though. So I would definitely do that if you think that you or your game group are at risk. Apart from those things, though, this game is... Even with those things, this game is excellent. I understand why it won the Games Magazine award, and frankly I'm a little shocked that it hasn't won any other awards, because it's the right complexity level for most of those awards. It's got some really innovative, ingenious mechanics. We can fight about that later. It's just really good. It's really good. You should buy it. You should buy this game. Buy this game. Bye.